And I think we all have candidates in our lives in both of those camps, people that we need, people who make us a better person, people who help us achieve, people who inspire us.
Laugh. I was so too. You said, "Don't judge me."
Well, here's the thing, I like with every holiday, I just never plan. I never plan anything. I'm one of those guys on Christmas Eve. I'm out in the mall shopping along with all the other crazy people because I just don't plan this stuff out. Me. And with Halloween, it's exactly the same. I never plan it out. Like if I were smart about this, I would look for like intelligent, good snacks, healthy things for the little monsters that come to my door, and I could give them things that I wouldn't feel like I'm poisoning them. But of course, did I plan it out that way? No. So it's like the day before Halloween, and I walk in the local grocery supermarket, and I see all the toxic crap. I mean, this is what we do. We destroy everything. We destroy other countries. We destroy our own culture. We destroy our children. We destroy holidays. Halloween, I mean, the origins of Halloween are super cool and fascinating. And it goes back to pagan rituals and the day of the year when the veil between the living and the dead was the thinnest. And the idea was that the entities and spirits would come over from the other side. And people would have these really fascinating rituals to deal with it. And then we get into trick-or-treating, which was kind of a cool variation of it. But what happens to the Americans? We get into this idea that, this happened when I was a kid. My mother would tell me, don't take apples from strangers because someone's going to put a razor blade in it.
Well, they were doing that back in the 70s.
Yes, I looked into this.
The 60s.
And it's a little sketchy. I mean, I actually have a friend who did inform me that, yes, she, as a child, she's about my age, someone had put a pin in an apple. So it can happen.
A straight pin.
A straight pin, exactly. So there are wacko people out there.
There definitely is. But
however,
they're few.
Right, they are few. And I was looking this up, and I'm not saying Snopes is the ultimate word on these things, but I did look at Snopes, and they suggested that, there's actually never been any recorded deaths from any of that kind of business. A couple of scratches, one recorded case of stitches. But when you're talking about the millions and millions of kids every year that trick or treat, it's fairly, a negligible risk.
Yeah.
But from that risk, so I can't give kids apples, not that I would anyway, but hey, maybe I would. Can't give them fruit. Who wants that? So I got to give them like little Snickers bars or Payday or Butterfingers, which basically are loaded with high fructose corn syrup and Jesuit, named Balthazar Gracian. And the book, at least the translation that I have, is called The Art, A Pocket Oracle by Balthazar Gracian. And he was Gracian was kind of like, it reminds one of Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli from a century or two earlier. Gracian was a Jesuit priest living in the court of Spain in that era when Spain was a major world power, and was a guy who walked in the circles of the very powerful. And basically what he did is he wrote these series of kind of aphorisms in these short, like a paragraph at a time, of how to live your life and how to live your life in a good way, being a good person, while at the same time not getting screwed by someone out, by the guy next to you who's trying to get over on you in one way or another, because that was the world of the Spanish court then, and that is the way of the world today that we live in. So he had a lot of good advice for people and on a lot of different subjects, and one of them was on choosing your friends. a lot of them was on just basically being prudent. Don't say all that you know. Don't let everyone know everything that's on your mind, at least not right away, and keep your friends close, your enemies closer. He was one of those types of guys, but also being ethical about it. But what I wanted to hit a couple of his statements dealing with friendships, and then hopefully having a few jumping off points from there. But this is one of his statements. If you have a copy of this book, this is aphorism number 11. And he says, associate with those you can learn from. And he goes on and says, let friendly relations be a school of erudition and conversation, refined teaching. Make your friends your teachers, and blend the usefulness of learning with the pleasure of conversation. Enjoy the company of people of understanding. What you say will be rewarded with applause, what you hear with learning. What draws us to others ordinarily is our own interest, and here that interest is ennobled. The prudent frequent the homes of courtly heroes, theaters of heroism, not places of vanity. Some are renowned for their learning and good judgment, oracles of all greatness through example and friendship. Those who accompany them form a courtly academy of gallant discretion and wisdom. So that's aphorism number 11 from Gracian, and I love that. And what you really get from this attitude, and this is written 300 years ago, just about, is a recognition that you really don't really find in society today, which is that there are people who are worth your while and people who really are not worth your while. There are people who have understanding, as he puts it, and clearly there are people who do not have understanding. And I have felt for a long time, I've tried to remind myself, sometimes with success and sometimes without success, that it's important for me to surround myself with people who help make my life better, not make my life worse, who can challenge me and help me to become a better person, rather than people who drag me down and bring me down to a lower level than I want to be, or a lower level than I am already. And there are people, I have acquaintances and some, let's just say some distant relations who I would say are not necessarily ennobling, and I might love them anyway. But these are not people that I would choose to have in my life in any kind of regular way. So I feel that for me, and I hope for you, it's important that you want to associate with those people that you can learn from. He goes on. There's another one that's kind of related, and I'm just going to read this one too. This is aphorism number 15. He writes, surround yourself with auxiliary wits. Auxiliary wits. I may not read all of this, but he says, things turn out well for the powerful when they are surrounded by people of great understanding who can get them out of the tight situations where their ignorance has placed them and take their place in battling difficulty. It is singular greatness to use wise people. This is a new way of mastering others, he says, in what matters most in life. Skillfully make servants of those whom nature made superior. We have little to live and much to know, and you cannot live if you do not know. You cannot live if you do not know. So again, this is for those who are in positions of power. Surround yourself with good people. Very obvious, I suppose we could say. One other here that I really liked, and then I won't read any more of Gracian, but you can tell this is a guy who's been around the block of life a few times. This is not about surrounding yourself with friends. This is about the kind of person you are. And this is what why I think we want to have good people around us. He writes, this is aphorism number 48. He says, you are as much a real person as you are deep. And think about that. You are as much a real person as you are deep. And what he's really implying here is if you're not deep, you're not a real person. A number of years ago, I was reading a book in the library of the late Manly P. Hall in Los Angeles. And one of Hall's books was a 1930s yoga book. And the last paragraph of it, I've never forgotten this. The author stated that we are all candidates for humanity. We are candidates for humanity. And that is, we become fully human by developing certain qualities about ourselves. And if we don't develop those qualities, we can't consider ourselves fully human, at least according to that author. And I think that's what Grazian is saying here. You're as much a real person as you are deep. And he goes on and says, as with the depths of a diamond, the interior is twice as important as the surface. There are people who are all facade, like a house left run out. They have the entrance of a palace, but the inner rooms of a cottage. These people have no place you can rest, though they are always at rest. For once they get through the first salutations, the conversation is over. They prance through the initial courtesies like Sicilian stallions. I love that. But immediately lapse into monkish silence. Words dry up when not refreshed by perennial springs of wit. Such people easily fool those who see things superficially, but not the sharp-sighted, who look inside them and find only emptiness. Fully human. We don't want to be superficial. We want to be able to see through the layers of deception and lies that permeate our own society, the layers of control that are all around us. And in order to do that, it seems to me we need to have our top game on, and we need to be able to see things deeply. And if we're going to do this right, we need to have... There are very few people out there, honestly, whose minds are on all the time and are doing their best to pierce through the lies and to pierce through the... to understand and look at the injustice that's happening and to try to make this world a better place. And when you find someone like that, you want them in your life because they're rare. So, because the whole point of what is it that we're doing here on this world if we're just going to live at the level of ordinary animals and concern ourselves with sleeping and having sex and having a warm roof, having a roof over our head. All those are fine. We need them. But if that's all that you're about, then that really makes you no better than any other animal that walks the earth. But you've got something else inside you. You've got a mind that can think about amazing things. And if we're really not making use of it, then you're throwing away the thing that is most unique, that makes you a human being. Why would you do that? Just through sheer laziness, I suppose. But you don't have to be lazy. You can push yourself, and you can search out for those people who can make you better. And it's not simply who can engage you intellectually. We want people who are genuinely good and ethical people. Do you want people around you who are unethical, who lie, who might steal, who are uncaring, maybe even sociopathic to some extent? Do you want people around you who don't care about human beings, or don't care about animals, don't care about and deadened and callous to that? But the thing is, I remember when I was a kid. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I made a friend with a boy who, he was kind of like that. He was not a nice kid, and he used to do petty vandalism against other kids that he didn't like. And for about maybe a year, I used to hang around with these kids, and I mean, to my shame, to this day, I, on one occasion, engaged in, I mean, really minor vandalism. We poked a hole in a inflatable pool belonging to some other kid that he didn't like. But I was part of it, and we thought, this is really funny. And we ran off. And I did that. And I remembered for a while, as I think under that influence, I started being meaner to my sister, my younger sister, Lisa. And I mean, I can see how this all happens now looking back. But this was definitely a friend that was not good for me. He was a bad influence on me. And I'm not passing off my responsibility to him. I was the one who did those things. But if I had had a little bit of a better consciousness at the time, I would have realized this is not a person I want in my life. Right? Well, that's easy. When you're a kid, you see, I mean, kids do some really bad things, and I did some bad things as a kid. But as you get older, you know, it becomes more subtle sometimes. You know, I mean, it's rare that you're going to find an adult who's going to engage in overt vandalism and just damage things for the fun of it. What you're more likely to see as an adult are instances of friends just not caring about certain things that you care about, not showing sympathy or empathy to fellow human beings. And I really believe, I mean, just as I was affected in a very dramatic way by this boy when I was 9, I think that we all get affected by the friends around us and by the people we choose to spend time with. And I think we really need to sit down and take an inventory of our friends and take an inventory of the people around us. And just ask ourselves, you know, does this person help me or hinder me from becoming a better person or not? Or are they kind of indifferent one way or the other? Do they help me become healthier physically and mentally and emotionally? Do they help me become smarter? Do they challenge me? Do they ease my mind, or do they make me tense, or do they make me upset? All of these things are considerations. It's not always a bad thing if you have a friend that challenges you and sometimes makes you tense, but you gotta weigh things out. Are they doing this in a way that's ultimately beneficial or not? You know, does the friend give or do they take? I mean, if they're constantly taking from you and not giving back, you got to wonder what is happening here. Do they constantly need you? One of the other things Gracian said, and I don't have this one in front of me, but I remember this distinctly, and this is where he's a little bit tough. He says, look, you got to stay away from those people who are just bad luck follows them wherever they go. He was really tough here. But he said, there are people, bad luck follows them wherever they go, and your job is to stay away from them. And part of me recoils at saying, at believing something like that, because I've had friends who've had really rough time, and I want to be able to help my friends, you know. But I think that there's a wisdom there too. There are some people who they may be good people, but there's something happening around them that they have a way of taking and taking and taking and needing and needing and needing and not giving back. And the next thing you know, you've got no energy left. And you realize that you're dealt with a kind of psychic vampire, whether they reach. All right, because you're making yourself difficult for other people. You're making the world a harder place, not a better place. And the fact is, if you're a taker, no one's going to want to be around you. And if you don't have a lot of friends in your life, you got to ask yourself honestly, deeply, and this is, you know, I don't want you to feel bad here about yourself, but if you're lacking a lot of people in your life, ask yourself, what is it that you're doing? And a really good solution to that, honestly, is by deciding to give to other people, by deciding to be a good friend to other people. And then you will be one of those people that will be chosen by discerning individuals because they will want you in their life. And it's one thing for you to choose good friends to have in your life, worthwhile friends, people who are going to make you a better person. But at the same time, right, it's important for you to be the kind of person who makes other people's lives better, not worse. It's important for you to be a giver, not a taker. I've come to believe now at this point in my life that we really get the kinds of friends we deserve. And we get the people in our life that we really will in our lives. I'm not going so far as to say that this is like the secret, just visualize it and it happens. But I do believe, though, that, your state of mind is going to draw the people in your life that consciously or unconsciously you're bringing in. But what I'm suggesting here is let's be a little more conscious about the process and be deliberate. Number of requests for my time and attention from everyone that I can imagine. And it's difficult for me. By the way, if you're someone who's written to me and I haven't replied to you, you got to understand, if I were to reply to every single person who wrote to me, I would literally get nothing done. I would get not one single thing done. So it's very difficult. So for me as well, I have to be very deliberate about who am I allowing into my time and my space. And if someone is not in there all the time, they have to understand it's not a rejection necessarily. It's almost never a rejection. It's just that I literally can't do it. I can't do it. And so I have to be very careful, and I have to decide, is this person positive or not? Is this person helping me or not? Is this person making my life easier or more difficult? But that's me, and I think that this is probably the case with all of us. I'm not the only busy person in the world. I'm sure you have a busy life. Most of us out there have a lot going on. So we've all got to be discerning over our time commitments, and we've got to be discerning over those people who we choose to be in our lives. And at the same time, this is the challenge of life. We want to be those people who are a benefit and a joy to others. That takes work. That takes removing ourselves out of our body to someone else. You give, it's give and take. I'm not saying just surround yourself with people who are going to be giving to you. You have to give also. That's one of the nice things about life. We get wonderful things from people that we know and love, and we give beautiful things to those we know and love. That's what it's about. So we got to be aware. It's all about being aware, being awake, and consciously making decisions about the kind of life we want to live.
That's right.
And this guy, Baltasar Grazian, by the way, I'm holding the book in my hand, and I found this book at a bookstore probably close to 20 years ago, and it's been one of my favorite books ever since. You can probably get it on Amazon. It's I think, in